Welcome to Talks with Tracy, with certified hypnotherapist, life coach, and licensed mental health professional, Tracy Claremont. Tracy will share her healing journey and explore the many meaningful alternative healing methods in our world today that will support you in doing your own deepest emotional healing. So please welcome the host of Talks with Tracy, Tracy Claremont. Let the suffering end and the healing begin.
Hello and welcome to Talks with Tracy, with me, Tracy Claremont, coming to you live on the Bold Brave Television Network. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate every single one of you who takes the time to listen to my podcast. And also, thank you to Bold Brave Television Network for giving me this great opportunity. So I have been having so much fun lately talking about hypnosis and hypnotherapy for the past several episodes. And my most recent guest was the amazing Shirley Mitchell. And we talked about different types of hypnosis and hypnotherapy that can be done and that we've done with people. And, if you haven't already watched those episodes, I encourage you to do so. Those were episodes number 34 and number 35, already on episode number 36. It's so crazy. So today I would love to spend some time giving specific examples of hypnosis sessions that I have experienced as the person being hypnotized, and also some examples of sessions that I have experienced where I am the one guiding the hypnotic healing, the hypnosis experience and expansion journeys. So I'm hoping that listeners are kind of like me. I like to have a nice example provided of what's being talked about. It really helps for me to build my understanding when I have examples like that, to kind of give a visual image of what is being talked about, and how it is put into motion, what it looks like when it's put into action. So today I am going to do my very best to paint a picture of what it looks like to do healing and expansion through hypnosis and hypnotherapy and hypnosis sessions. All right, and as I've said before on this show, I am an open book. So I will be drawing on my own personal experiences to paint this big picture. All right, so I just want to jump right into it. Let's start by an example of a hypnotherapy session. Hypnotherapy is, generally speaking, hypnosis that focuses on current present life issues, healing around present life issues through hypnotherapy. So I want to give this example of a hypnosis session that was really impactful that I did several years back. So years ago, I did a hypnotherapy session with a client who came to me with the issue of never having felt loved. So she described never having felt truly loved by anyone in her entire lifetime, which caused, of course, for her to have a core belief of unworthy of love, unlovable, unwanted. Now, she had chosen relationships that supported that core belief, of being unworthy and unlovable, unwanted. So these were unhealthy relationships that didn't serve her. Can you imagine going your whole lifetime never feeling truly loved? Oh my goodness. So if you can, I really feel for you. Such a very difficult way and a lonely way to experience your life. Each and every one of us are worthy of love. We are all true love and light. So anyway, she also said that it caused feelings of not being good enough and patterns of people pleasing in efforts to gain acceptance from people. So it created a lot of problems in her lifetime. So for this session, I briefly gathered background information. She told me that she had been adopted at birth and raised in a family that was a decent family, but she never did feel genuine love from them, and she never really felt like she fit in. They had biological children. She always felt like an outsider. So when she turned 18, and this hypnosis session was done several years back, and she was in her mid-60s at the time of the hypnosis session, so she had experienced a lifetime with this feeling, never feeling loved experience. When she turned 18, she researched information regarding her birth mother. She wanted to know her birth mother, and she found an address and like a mailing address for her. And, this birth mother, she lived all the way across the United States. She was very far away. So she wrote her a letter hoping for a response. And in this letter, she asked about the circumstances around this decision to give her up for adoption. Now, she didn't really expect to get anything back, but to her surprise, she did receive a letter back from her birth mother. And in this letter, her birth mother explained that she had gotten pregnant from a random one night stand situation. Her father was a cowboy who didn't want to have anything to do with the situation and had left immediately following, after he heard that she was pregnant. Um, she said that she had other children that she had to take care of and another relationship. So she had to make the choice to give her up for adoption. So now this client, she maintained contact with the birth mother through telephone calls and letters, and she did establish a relationship. They never did meet up in person. And then her mother died. And so she never did quite get to meet her in person, but she did develop some kind of relationship. She did say, though, that she never felt satisfied with the information, the answers that she received um, in regard to her beginnings. All right, so then I had the client describe what life without the problem looks like. This was really hard for her because when you've never experienced love in your life, then it's really hard to describe how it feels to have love in your life. So this took some time and effort, but we got there. We got some really nice images and words that she used to describe what it would feel like to actually have love in her life. So, this is really an example of how amazing hypnotherapy can be. When I regressed her back to the very origins of the issue at hand, she went straight back into a scene in which she was newly born in a hospital. So, in this scene, the nurse was rolling her out of the room in that little cart that they put you in. Um, she saw her mother laying in the bed, and she saw her father sitting next to the bedside of her mother. And she just vividly described this scene. She said her mother was crying. Her mom was looking at the man. He was also crying. They were holding hands. And she noticed that they couldn't look at her. They couldn't watch her being wheeled away. They had a lot of, just pain. She sensed a lot of pain and sadness in them. When I asked her what she was sensing from the scene, she said that they loved each other, that they were actually in relationship, but they weren't supposed to be in relationship. So this was more like an affair situation. And um, her mom was feeling afraid and completely heartbroken. So in this scene, it was really important because what it showed her was that they loved each other, and that meant that this was, that she was actually born out of love, a love relationship, that it was a forbidden love relationship, granted, but that they did want her, but they felt they couldn't keep her, and she was loved by them, and they loved each other. So now let's just think about this. How life changing is it for a person to go from believing that they're essentially a mistake, born out of a loveless one night stand, unwanted, abandoned, to go from that to knowing that you're actually very much loved and born out of a love relationship, wanted by your parents, but who were not able to keep you. She actually saw the pain on their faces and sensed their feelings. That in itself is life changing. So now, once we thoroughly reviewed that scene, we went on to a scene, the next scene, that was also very impactful and related to the origins of the issue today. So in this scene, she was in some kind of infant seat, sitting by a chain link fence in a yard by herself. She was around 6 months old, she said. She could see boys on the other side of the fence playing basketball, and she felt scared, sad, and alone. She saw a woman dressed as a nun walking across the yard towards her. This woman picked up the carrier, brought her into this big brick building, which she described in detail. where other children were sitting at a big table like they were waiting for a meal. Now, she was placed on the floor in a room next to this room that the children were in. And again, she was left alone, feeling sad and I'm sure unwanted. So then she was given a bottle and she was taken to a room where there were cribs, lots of cribs in it. She was the only person in the room and she was left in a crib to sleep all by herself, um, all alone and left to soothe herself and go to sleep. Again, she described feeling alone, scared, sad. Then we went to a third scene, and in this third scene, she saw the people who raised her, the parents who raised her, coming to this place and taking her to her new home. And they were happy, they were excited, they looked kind. And then she left with these people to go to her new home. Now, I was so very happy to be able to guide her through these memories. um, we did the healing, we did it's not me, I'm not that baby anymore, I am an adult, I can provide my own love for myself, I provide my own protection. um, I am worthy of love and I am wanted and I have this life. We integrated that baby. We took her out of that scene, brought her into the present day lifetime, which was an upgrade for sure and a safe, loving place within herself. We did all that kind of that healing there. And we even did a dialogue with the herder, which was the birth mother, about around, that it wasn't okay to tell her a lie about the circumstances. And even though she felt like she had to, it wasn't okay because it caused this and that. And we did that dialogue, which was also very healing. And then I left her with a recording that was full of suggestions of lovability or lovability. I don't think that's a word. Lovableness, enoughness. I may be making up words now, but I love these words. Calm mind, calm body, complete and utter worthiness. All of those instilled in her subconscious mind through a recording that I asked her to listen to for 21 days to really, solidify those pathways, those neural pathways that were being developed. So now I give this example not only because it really demonstrates how things just take place in general in hypnotherapy, but I also want to demonstrate how useful and life-changing having these kind of memories and information, all of this that's held in our subconscious mind, related to our very earliest moments, how healing and relevant it can be. She had been given a completely false account of her beginnings, and I'm sure it was a story that her mother felt she had to create for her own well-being and safety and survival. But nonetheless, it was detrimental to this woman, and um, really created this sense of unlovableness and unwanted that impacted her throughout her life. So knowing that she was actually born of love was life-changing. Now, I also like to do a little research just because, just for fun after a session like this. So now this client had told me the name of the town that she was born in. It was a town in North Dakota, and I also knew her age because I had her date of birth. So I knew the year that she was born. So I Googled afterwards orphanages in that town in that year. And I came up with a newspaper article that had a picture of that brick building, and it was exactly as she described it. And in this newspaper article, it talked about how this had been like a receiving home, orphanage type facility that was run by nuns. And this newspaper article was printed in the year that she was born, and it was talking about how it was actually being closed down. It was no longer going to be used for that purpose. So, I mean, how amazing to actually have a newspaper photograph of exactly everything she described in that memory. So I would argue that those things are hard to make up. And this woman, she was shocked and amazed that she had even been in an orphanage for a period of time, because that was something that the birth mother had not told her, that she went from that hospital to an orphanage. And also her parents who adopted her had never told her where they actually went to get her, to retrieve her from. So all of that was new information to her. So now I did do follow up with this client a few weeks later, and she reported that she had had a decrease in her anxiety and depression, that it had lifted, and she was feeling better about herself. And, now she was also feeling like she was at a place in her life where, with that healing, she could now look at other things to that needed to be shifted and changed in her lifetime. She had self-medicated all of those feelings of anxiety, depression. She had self-medicated them with substances for many, many years. And she was now feeling like, with this understanding, with these answers, that she could go on to address some of those issues related to her substance use. So that is also life changing. That is hugely motivating and wonderful. Um, and also, the other thing she did tell me is that she had chosen to sever all ties to a long standing relationship with somebody who had um, been very emotionally abusive to her over the course of many, many years. So she, immediately following hypnotherapy, started making all these incredible changes in her lifetime. And I was just so proud of her. And it's so amazing that one hypnotherapy session can actually create those changes. So mind blowing. I'm going to check something real quick here. All right, so it's time to take a brief commercial break. When I come back, I will be sharing hypnotherapy that was done on me by the amazing Mark Johnson, and also hypnotherapy that was life-changing for me. I'll also be sharing some past life regression hypnosis experiences. So please stay tuned. You're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. I'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, live on Bold Brave Television Network. Thanks for joining me once again. In the last segment, I shared an example of hypnotherapy healing that I guided with a client. Now, what I'd like to do now is just use myself as an example, and I'd like to share kind of a progression of my own healing and learning, um, talking about a hypnotherapy experience that was hugely impactful to me. I've mentioned it before a little bit, but I'd like to go into much greater detail today about it. And then that would be healing around present lifetime issues. And then I'd like to share a past life regression experience that I had that provided me such further insight as to the very origins of my current lifetime issues. So it's kind of a lot, but I just want to inspire people in this process of putting the pieces together. It's so very mind blowing. I mean, when you're really able to get a clear picture of the big picture, the very big picture of what is happening for you in this lifetime and what you came here for, what learning, what purpose. It's amazing. So it really puts meaning and purpose to our experiences, and it brings about a true appreciation for those experiences, even our hard experiences, and a certain degree of peacefulness for the whole process and understanding of why we're having these experiences that we're having and what we're meant to learn. So it's an understanding of the expansion that you came here to do in this lifetime, the meaning behind it. So I'd like to start again with sharing my experience of hypnotherapy that I touched on previously in other talks with Tracy, because this hypnotherapy experience was truly transformational. So I'm stealing Dr. Spiegel's transformational word. I love that word. Wish I had thought of it myself. And then I'm just going to go into a little greater detail about that experience. Of course, I'm talking about the hypnotherapy session that I had many years ago when I was training to become a certified hypnotherapist with the amazing Mark Johnson. As students in Mark Johnson's class, we all had to take turns being hypnotized as Mark demonstrated hypnosis techniques and healing through hypnotherapy on us. And, this was back a long time ago. It was the very beginnings of my understanding about the amazing powers of the subconscious mind. And it was the early years of development of my soul consciousness. And I was really brand new to it. And this was also in those times when I was terrified of being recognized, of being seen, having any kind of spotlight put on me. So, as you might guess, I was very terrified of the day that I would have to take my turn being hypnotized and have all the eyes of those students on me in a demonstration. I was not looking forward to this, but one day I was like, I'm just going to get this over with. And I volunteered for a regression to cause hypnotherapy session. Now, a regression to cause hypnotherapy session is where you identify an issue that you are experiencing in your current lifetime, and then you are regressed back to the very origins, the originating events that set that issue into motion. And that's what I described doing with the client in the previous segment. I regressed her back to the very origins of the issue that she was experiencing in her present day lifetime. Now, for this demonstration, I identified my issue as being fear of public speaking. So now this was a huge understatement. I was terrified of any kind of recognition, let alone getting up in front of people and speaking. It was the full gamut. I didn't want to have any attention drawn to me. I wanted to be, a number among many that didn't stand out at all. And I also lacked insight at that time. So the best way that I could describe my issue in the moment was fear of public speaking. So we went with that. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, even though I truly believed in the hypnotherapy process and I really wanted to learn it and I wanted to get really good at doing it, at that time, I kind of already thought I knew the scenes in my conscious mind. I thought I knew the scenes that I was going to be regressed back to. And I hate to admit this, but I had kind of secretly rehearsed some scenes to visit, some memories. Now, this was indicative of the fear of public speaking or the anxiety that I had for having the spotlight on me. I was always over prepared. I always had plan A, B, C in place so that I would not be like publicly humiliated or embarrassed or anything when I did have the spotlight on me. So, and I also I'd never been hypnotized. So I didn't know if I could be put into a hypnotic trance, and like, what if it didn't work? Like, should I do it, or should I say it's not working? Should I fake it? All of these things, worry, thoughts, anxiety going on in my mind. So I kind of had some memories in store, um, all related to the issue that I said that I wanted to have worked on. Anyways, so regardless, of all this anxiety, I had to take this turn, and I did. So Mark regressed me back. He induced me into hypnosis and directed my subconscious mind to go back to the very core originating events of this issue, fear of public speaking. And to my surprise and sheer amazement, I went all the way back to a memory of being 1.5 years old in a sterile hospital room. Now, I can assure you, this was not a conscious mind memory. I had no memory of this until I had this hypnosis session. It was not something I rehearsed. It was not something I had planned. None of that. In fact, the memories that I had practiced and rehearsed, they were memories that from middle school and high school of being embarrassed. So, but in fact, this memory came forth, and this memory that came forth, it actually went against everything that I had been told and everything I knew about my early childhood years. Now, I knew that I had had multiple surgeries related to a hip disorder. I was aware of that consciously, and but I had always been told by my mom and dad that I just breezed right through these experiences, like like a champ. My dad, he was like, "You only needed one baby aspirin after every surgery. You were so brave and so strong." And then my mom would show me pictures, photographs of me being a happy baby with a body cast up to my armpits, pulling myself around on a little cart with wheels. I was playing with toys I could reach and emptying cupboards that I could reach, and always happy. And that's how she told me. That's what she told me about it. But in this scene, I was seeing pain. I was terrified. It was awful. I was seeing the opposite of what I'd been told about this experience. And this scene was vivid, let me tell you. I could see my mom's face just so clearly. She was trying to comfort me. I was crying. I was clinging to her. She was trying to hold herself together. The nurses, they were trying to take me off of her. I was fighting to stay with her. I could see the faces of the nurses clearly as well. And, they were kind, but you could tell they were getting pretty frustrated with me. And I just remember feeling such desperation and fear. So the other thing that I had never been told before was that back when I was 1.5 years old, they didn't allow parents to stay in the hospital. Now, in my own experience of parenting my own children, I was always able to be in the hospital and stay in the hospital whenever one of my kids ended up there. But I didn't know that back then they couldn't. So that was also new to me. And then it was very clear in this memory that visiting hours were coming to an end and my mom was going to have to leave me. Now, after I had thoroughly described that scene, Mark asked me what 1.5-year-old Tracy needed in that moment. And I told him I needed to be invisible so that I could get past the nurses and leave with my mom. And he asked me how I was feeling. I told him I was terrified. I was feeling so unsafe. I was needing to escape. I was needing to just disappear. And then Mark guided me in the healing. Remember how we've talked about how our subconscious mind uses imagination to do healing? And this is how suggestions are instilled into our subconscious minds when we're in this trance state. Now, our minds imagine and accept the images that are put forth. They accept them as the truth. And that's why such remarkable healing can be done so quickly. So Mark had me imagine me as adult Tracy going into this scene, this hospital scene, and taking 1.5-year-old Tracy out of that scene, picking her up, holding her, comforting her, giving her all the protection, safety that she was needing. Excuse me. And then taking baby Tracy out of that scene and into adult Tracy's lifetime. So he did the integration of baby Tracy into the current lifetime, which is safe and comfortable, all protected, giving baby Tracy everything that she was needing in that moment and not able to receive. So then Mark instilled these amazing suggestions related to safety while being seen, um, related to being calm, confident, even when having the attention of others upon me. He instilled images and suggestions into my mind that were the opposite of needing to be invisible to be safe. So I used my beautiful imagination to envision myself being up in front of people, being noticed, using my voice, being recognized, full of confidence, completely safe, comfortable, all of that, which was incredibly healing. And that was healing done in one hypnotherapy session. Now, after having this hypnotherapy session, I went to my beautiful, kind, loving mother, who I'm so thankful to have with me still today. And I was like, what the heck, Mom? I thought that all of those surgeries, that I had when I was little, that they were no big deal and that I breezed through them. And she told me, no, they were awful. They were the worst experience ever. I described that hospital scene, and she told me that I described it to a T. And she said it was the most horrific thing that she had ever been through, and that also I had ever been through. So this really helped me to put those pieces back together to my life, and really helped me to gain an understanding and to do the healing so I didn't struggle with those issues anymore. So I do think it's interesting that even though I wanted to learn the process and be a hypnotherapist, that I came into it with some doubts. And I'm so thankful that Mark Johnson had us do a practice session, or where a demonstration session where we were hypnotized and he did healing with us, because from that moment on, I was sold on this whole process, and I'm completely sold on it today. So it is time to take another brief commercial break. When I come back, I am going to be sharing my experience in past life regression hypnosis that revealed even further knowing to me, things that I never thought I could ever even know or do. So again, connecting even more of those dots through hypnosis. So please stay tuned. You're watching Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television Network. I'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Talks with Tracy, coming to you live on Bold Brave Television Network. Thanks for joining me once again. I shared in the last segment some experiences that I have been guided through in hypnosis and hypnotherapy, and also segment one, some services that I provided myself. So I wasn't really sure whether or not hypnosis would even work for me or work on me until I had the experience, and it was life changing and so impactful. And from that moment on, I was sold. Now, this was a time in my life where I was stepping out of the norm of practice, kind of going into my own authentic self, which was a challenge for me. But it was pretty scary. I was used to just kind of roaming with the herd and doing like every other mental health person that was around me was doing. And this was me stepping into my own healing practices and doing my own thing. So hypnotherapy in itself was stepping outside of the norm for me. So you can probably imagine my reaction on the day that our trainer, Mark Johnson, announced that immediately following the conclusion of our certification training in hypnotherapy, he would be starting a certification training in past life regression hypnosis, and all of us were invited to participate. So what do you think my reaction was? Was it like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, Mark. I'd love to further my education in the art of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Sign me up. Well, no, it wasn't. I was actually like, what? Past life regression? Are you crazy? That is super duper woo wooey. Oh my gosh. I could never guide someone in a past life regression, could I? And that was all part of me being afraid of my own beautiful, unique abilities and my own self, right? That naysayer speaking up within me again. It was saying like, hey, Tracy, don't be weird. Don't be different. Don't stand out. But thankfully, I'd had that hypnotherapy session already from Mark, which I had healed a lot of that. And I was practicing leaning into things that I was uncomfortable with when opportunities presented itself. So I actually did say, yes, sign me up. So I learned past life regression hypnosis next, and I absolutely love it. It was such an amazing experience and continues to be. It's very similar process to hypnotherapy with a little more time spent in induction, going deeper, deeper, deeper into relaxation and hypnotic trance. And once in hypnosis, you're gradually guided further and further back into your memories. You start with a couple pleasant childhood memories, and then you go back to a very early childhood memory. Then you go to a womb memory. Now, that is super interesting in itself. I've had several womb memories now. And, I once had a womb memory in which I was almost 3 months gestation in my mother's belly. And I could feel my mom standing in her kitchen, and she was crying. She was afraid. She was anxious. I wasn't able to sense what she was crying about, but I knew that it had something to do with this pregnancy with me. And this was, again, it was confusing to me because my mom had always told me that her pregnancies with myself and my brother, those were like her happiest times. She loved being pregnant with us, and she'd always described a great experience. So it was kind of confusing that she was so upset and anxious about this pregnancy. But clearly, I saw her crying, anxious, upset, and I didn't actually figure out what she was upset about in that when I was actually in the hypnosis. But afterwards, again, I always go to my mom and I'm like, Mom, what's up? So I told her that I had this memory, this womb memory, and she told me that yes, that was absolutely true. And she remembers many moments of crying in her kitchen in the first trimester. Because, in fact, and I had never been told this, between my brother and myself, she had suffered 2 miscarriages in the first trimester. And she was nearing the end of the first trimester with me, and she was afraid she was going to lose me. So she was just so anxious and upset, and it made perfect sense. Now, after a womb memory, a hypnotherapist or hypnotist directs you to go even further back into your memories, traveling back to a past life. Now, when I'm doing this with people, I remind them that this isn't something that they have to try to do. It's just something that they need to allow, and it'll happen. It'll happen just naturally and easily as you focus on traveling back. And the past life that comes forward it'll always be the lifetime that has something to teach you, has something to tell you. So, something, the past lifetime that presents itself, it somehow influences your experience in your current lifetime. Often we bring emotional issues from past lives forward. We can bring physical illnesses forward into this lifetime. Physical pain is often brought forward. There's many things that can be brought forward and many reasons for that. So now when I was in training with past life regression, I took a turn being hypnotized by another student. And this was my first experience with being hypnosis that was past life regression. So I did have a question. I wanted to know why I had developed type 1 diabetes in this lifetime. Like, was there purpose around it? Was it something I had carried over from a past lifetime? Um, and then she regressed me back, and she did a great job. I popped right into a scene in which there was a woman, and she was standing in the middle of a township, holding on to her two children, like protecting them. And they were surrounded by this angry mob of townspeople. And, she could sense that they hated her. They wanted to kill her. They were screaming and yelling. They were so aggressive. They were shaking weapons at her. They were holding rocks. And I really described the scene in full detail, right down to what the woman was wearing. And then to find out what these townspeople were so upset about, we went back to an earlier scene that would tell us. And in this scene, I went back to a scene where this woman, and who I knew was me, was with her two children, and we had this ability to manipulate energy, and we liked to play with balls of energy, and we had these like sparkling um, blue energetic balls that we kind of like would toss around and play with. And these were also like energies that were related to our healing abilities, that we did not practice because we were not allowed to. Um, and this was something it was clear that it was to remain unseen. Like, this had to be a secret. Well, in this scene, there was a man who was in the background, and he saw us doing this, manipulating energy and playing in this way. And he went back to the townspeople and he told everybody that we were witches and that he had witnessed this. And this is where all that anger and aggression had come from. Now, during the course of this past lifetime memory, I was asked where we were. Now, I remember really having to focus on this question. It didn't just pop out easily, but I did. I focused and focused. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? And then all of a sudden, the word Netherlands floated across like my line of vision, like on a black movie screen or something. The words floated across the screen, and I said, I'm in the Netherlands. And then she asked me what year. And again, I really had to focus hard, and it took a while of focus. But then I saw the numbers 1600s float across the screen as well. And I said, oh, it's the 1600s. So she asked me what my children's names were. When I said my daughter's name, I said Sarah, but then I said, it's not pronounced that way. She said, how is it pronounced? I said, Sara. And she said, okay. And, I talked about this beautiful gift that we had of healing through energy, and how the townspeople were afraid of it. They thought it was evil. They thought we were witches. So I go on in this memory. After that, we went to the death scene. Now, I was kind of surprised to see that I was a much older woman in this death scene. And my children were there, and they were adults. So I had successfully hidden us for all of those years and protected us. And now I was laying on a bed. I was extremely skinny. In fact, the image was going from like a human body image to a skeletal figure. And the word depleted, depleted, depleted kept coming through and kept being said in this scene. And again, shifting from that human body to a skeletal figure. So I had spent my entire life in this lifetime in the effort of hiding and protecting and being afraid for my life and the lives of my children. I was completely depleted of all sustenance and energy. Like, the life was just sucked out of me. And then I died in this scene, and I floated above my body. and I crossed over. Now, when guided in exploring how this lifetime influenced my current lifetime, I really saw that there were themes of hiding myself to be safe, not being able to be my true self, not letting my true authentic self show, of course, and or I would be killed, and my children would be killed too. Um, Not being able to, practice healing the way I wanted to, having to stifle it, and this was so draining of my own personal energy, and it just caused me to become completely depleted. So again, I was making connections, connecting the dots with these themes from this lifetime that I had brought into my present lifetime. And again, those themes were, I must remain hidden to be safe. I'm not able to show my true authentic self. Being afraid, completely depleting myself in this effort to stay safe. When I went through my divorce, I, at the end of that marriage, after much stress, chronic stress and upset in this process of breaking free and divorcing, I became completely drained and depleted of every ounce of energy I had. And that is when I developed type 1 diabetes. When I was feeling that just complete depletion, and that, I was repeating that in this lifetime. So again, this was a past lifetime that presented itself to me. Now, I do want you to know again that I Google things after these things, and I did Google this after I was done with this hypnosis session. I'm a fact checker, so after this session, I Googled Netherlands in the 1600s. I wanted to know if we were witches, or if they thought we were witches, why didn't they kill us? And I found that in the Netherlands, that was one of the few countries that didn't actually kill witches. They didn't like them, and they harassed them and whatnot, but they didn't kill them. I also Googled what they wore at that time. I saw a woman, like a picture popped up of a woman in exactly what I described wearing. I Googled, so I knew nothing about the Netherlands. I still don't. I knew it was in Europe, but that's pretty much it. So, I also said, what language do they speak in the Netherlands? Turns out it's Dutch, or the Danish language. And I said, how do they say Sarah in that language? And I clicked on that, and it said it said Sada, the exact same way that I had said it in the hypnosis. So I can guarantee you, I can't make this up. I really can't make this up. I didn't see a movie about it. I'm not a history buff, anything. I do read books. I never read a book about the Netherlands. So this was all an impactful experience. Excuse me. So I do want to share one more past life regression experience before we are done today. And this is an example of a past life regression hypnosis session that I guided somebody through. And I want to share this first off because I think it's kind of fascinating to people. Um, these kind of examples are fascinating, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of people who are real skeptical out there, which I totally get. I wasn't sure that all this could happen myself and actually be a real thing. So, just to be clear, you don't actually have to have a question to request a past life regression hypnosis session. You could just ask, want the knowing. You can just want to visit a lifetime that has something to do with your experience today. So, you could just say you want to have the experience. Now, I did a hypnosis session with somebody who was just that. They wanted to have that experience. Now, they did say, when I was gathering background information, that they had a considerable amount of trauma in their present lifetime experience, and they had a lot of emotional dysregulation in this lifetime and in this experience. And if that was from a past life, then sure, they wanted to know that and do some healing around that. But more than anything, they just wanted to go to the most relevant life experience and see what it had to show them. All right, so again, in a past life regression, the client is gradually guided further and further and further back into their memories. And you're first regressed back to a happy childhood memory. So when I regressed her in the very beginning back to a happy childhood memory, she said she was 13 years old. She described buildings all around her, lots of people walking, lots of excitement. She said that she was by herself. She was confused. She was where she was not supposed to be, and she was looking for someone. Now, she also said that she felt like herself, but she didn't look like herself. Now, this was one of my very early regressions that I did. It was a practice session. So I did know to ask her if this memory was from the current lifetime or a past lifetime. And she said, I believe it's from my current lifetime. Now, with my experience today, I would have just gone fully into that experience because it was a little confusing and it wasn't making sense. Why wouldn't she look like what she looks like today in this lifetime? But I was new. I just went ahead with protocol and I went back. We left that scene and we went back into early other childhood memories. We went to a very early one where she was being baptized. We went to a womb memory. We even went to a memory where her soul was connecting with her physical body in utero. And then I regressed her back into a past lifetime. And sure enough, lo and behold, she was a 13-year-old girl, the same 13-year-old girl that presented itself in the beginning. Her beautiful subconscious mind had wanted to go straight into that past life experience and do the knowing and the learning and provide the information. And again, in my inexperience, I had kind of breezed past that and kept stuck to protocol. I know better now. So she described being a 13-year-old female wearing a silk robe. She had long black hair, described wearing ornaments. She was looking for her father. She knew she was in a marketplace. And she had become separated from him in the crowd. She described a bridge that went over a canal and buildings with red rooftops. And I asked her what year or where she was and what year she was in, and she quickly identified it. She said she was in China in the year 1756, very specific, and a procession was happening. I asked her what was the procession for. Everybody was excited. She said it was a procession for a new empress. So we went further ahead into her lifetime. Now she was 20. I was asking her about any achievements or what was going on in her lifetime then, and she said that she wasn't allowed to do anything. Only the men were allowed to have accomplishments and achievements, and this frustrated her. She was actually supposed to be there for her family. That was her role as a female. So then we went to a scene a little further out where she was being told to do something that she did not want to do. And that she really had a strong sense of being completely disconnected from her family and from people that she loved. And in fact, she then described being sent away, far away, to a man who she would then be married to and happened to leave her dad. And she didn't want to do this, but she had to do that. We progressed further into her lifetime, and now, many years later, she said that there was a pending war, like war was on the horizon. Now she was worried about her father, whom she hadn't seen since she was sent away to be married, and she didn't know if he was alive or dead. Again, disconnection. And then we moved forward, and suddenly we were in the death scene, and war was upon her. She had been stabbed with a sword in her stomach by the enemy, and her children had been killed. So she could hear people screaming. She could see fires burning. And she had been stabbed in her stomach. She was dying. Well, she took her last breath and she left her body. She stood outside of her body and she said that she was sad, but she was not scared. In fact, she was eager to pass on and reconnect with those loved ones who had already passed before her. All right, so what was the connection to her current lifetime? Why did this lifetime present itself and eagerly present itself? What was she to learn? So I asked her these questions, and she said, first, the physical pain that she experienced in her stomach in this lifetime had been brought forth from this past lifetime, from being stabbed in the stomach with a sword. So she hadn't even mentioned the physical pain in her stomach. when we were talking, but she was making that connection in hypnosis. And then she said at the emotional level, a deep sense of disconnection that she felt from people had carried over into this lifetime and was in fact a source of emotional dysregulation in this lifetime, all of that disconnection from people. And then lastly, at the thought level, she had carried over the thought that a girl has to pretend to be weak and to be cared about or loved, and that is the role of a woman, not to achieve and be confident and bring forth great things in this lifetime. And that was a thought that also had been with her in this lifetime, a lack of confidence and a fear of really achieving anything in this lifetime. So of course we did the healing. These things were released back into that past lifetime. They were not serving her. And, in a follow-up session, the client told me that she had a noticeable decrease in the pain in her stomach. And she also had begun standing up for herself, using her own voice in a positive manner, and, really focusing on what she wanted out of this lifetime so that she could achieve things that she was wanting. And all of this newfound confidence and knowing had caused her to better regulate her emotions. So what a great success. That was amazing. Now, again, I Google. After these therapy sessions, I'm a Googler. So I Googled 1756 Chinese Empress, and poof, there it was. It popped up Princess He Jing, who was born in 1756, popped up that image. Now I'm probably saying her name wrong. I apologize. But she was a princess of the Qing dynasty, and they celebrated her birth in 1756 with a procession. And, through doing this hypnosis, I got to hear a firsthand account of this. And so amazing. All of these things, super hard to make up, right? I don't know. I don't even think you can make this stuff up. All right. So I do know that there are naysayers out there and disbelievers. That's okay. Everybody's entitled to their own beliefs and opinions. But from my experience, I can assure you I am a true believer, and I will continue to have my own experiences and continue my own expansion. And I encourage you to experience this yourself and, really actively participate in your own expansion meant to be done in this lifetime. You can hit me up for that. I'm certified in all of this, and I'd love to work with you. All right, so we are out of time today. Thank you for listening. You are so very appreciated. This has been Talks with Tracy on Bold Brave Television. I'll see you next week.
This has been Talks with Tracy. Join us each week as Tracy and her guests will come together and realize that underneath it all, we are all the same and never alone. So join us each week and let Talks with Tracy be your safe place to land in your healing journey. Right here, Thursdays, 11 a.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.